Hey everyone, I'm so glad that we can do this series with you. Driki isn't able to join us today, but I thought about sharing with you just a little bit around the topic of boundaries, and I can probably do a few weeks just on this topic. It's so important that you have boundaries in your life. Boundaries are basically when you tell people what's okay and what's not okay. And for us, in the process of losing our baby, we learned the importance once again of boundaries. I think one of the most valuable pieces of advice that we received was that we should be clear, or we should explain to people and tell people what we need during that time. People want to do something to help, they want to say something to help you, and they want to make you feel better in some way, but most people don't really know what to say or what to do, and so you end up with two different scenarios. On the one side, you have people that say things that's not really helpful, and on the other side, you have people that just keep quiet and just ignore the situation because of their fear of doing or saying something that might upset you. So we were in Cape Town, with our friends, straight after this happened, and it was such a wonderful environment. There was no expectations, but we knew in coming back we would have to face people. And as we explained, in our previous video, at that point in your life, you really are not up to discussing with people what happened, but you so desperately need people's support. You can't do this on your own. And so my advice to you would be to tell people what you want. So when we returned, I actually spoke to our congregation, and I said, listen, this is what we need, this is what we want. If you want to support us, you can come and hug us. You can, if you want to send something like flowers, you can do that. But what we do not want is to go into discussions. We don't want to talk about the situation. And people responded so wonderfully to that. And I think when it comes to dealing, with grief, regardless if it's losing a baby or losing a loved one, I think it is so important that you would communicate with people what you would want. If they feel like supporting you, you need to communicate what kind of support you would want. So I want to encourage you today, if you are going through something similar like us, or you maybe have lost a loved one, or you maybe in the process of having to say goodbye to somebody that is sick, that's busy dying, be kind to yourself, and don't allow people to tell you things like you have to get through this. And people want sometimes, for your sake, they want you to move past this very quickly. And as you've learned in our previous video, people deal with this in different ways, and we need to have that grace for people. So if you're going through this, talk to people about what kind of support would mean the world to you, what would help you in this process. And then if you're a supporter of somebody that's going through this, my advice to you would be, choose very carefully what you say. We had people saying things like, well, you didn't know this baby. And I want to say to you today that regardless of the amount of weeks that you're pregnant, the moment that you find out that you're pregnant, you are expecting, you start to form a bond with this child, and you start to have dreams and expectations and visions of what you see your life develop into. And so I had people, coming up to me, and I know they meant well, but they would say the strangest things, and it's because they don't know what to say. So they would say, well, at least you didn't know the child, at least you didn't have a relationship with the child, or you can always have another child. We even had somebody that came up to Driekie and said, well, maybe the Lord knew that you were going to be very busy with your ministry, so maybe it was better for him to just let the baby, go, because he knew that the baby would take up, your attention. And so all those things that people say, it doesn't really help. And it doesn't matter that they say it, because in that moment you do feel alone and you feel like you're never going to get past it. And so we realize the importance of those boundaries. And we realize that people deal with this in their own unique way and in their own unique time. And I was listening to a message of a guy who spoke on stillbirth and miscarriage. And the thing about miscarriage and stillbirth is that society do not acknowledge this loss. They sometimes wonder why you are taking so long to get through it and all of that, because somehow they think because the baby hasn't been born yet, or maybe because the baby hasn't spent some years with you, they somehow think that it shouldn't be that big deal. But let me tell you today that if you know of somebody that's going through this, the moment we expect a baby, there's a bond being formed. And so that's why in the previous video I spoke about us sitting with our child and talking to him about the future that we had envisioned for him. And so it's important for you to have healthy boundaries, and you need to learn how to voice it. And if you're a supporter, you need to learn to listen when people say what they need. So I want to encourage you today, set those boundaries so that you can move in this process of grief with people that lovingly support you. God bless you.